Thank you all for joining. First item of business, any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, move on. Item 2, adoption of the previous minutes. Is there any notes on the minutes? Do I have somebody who would motion that we accept the minutes? Councillor Vasilakos, second by John. All in favor? Thank you. Item 3, work plan. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for such great work. This is wonderful.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I love being able to do this kind of stuff. It was good for me because kind of being gone for a year, it gave me a whole glance at all the great stuff you guys have been doing and somewhere where we can keep it all on one space. So it was more self-serving. And then I was like, well, maybe they'd find it very useful too. So I thought I would share it out. So I'm assuming that people looked over it beforehand. That was sort of the idea of sending it out in advance. And then do you think it's best if can I share my screen, Nancy, and be able to pull it up that way so people can kind of see real time?
Sure. Yeah. If you can let me know if you aren't able to do it.
Okay. Everyone should be able to see the work plan screen.
Hey.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I guess a couple of things I wanted to say before we get going, just so I can highlight just a couple of things. I'm going to change my screen so you guys are across the other way. Okay, so report card over here, I just put a question mark. That was just me thinking like maybe this is something that would be a good idea to go on the report card. And then when I saw the report card, most of the things were already on there. So that was great. That was just me tracking things. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the BFC application, which means the Bike Friendly Communities application. So being that we're an honorable mention now, I'm imagining our group will want to reapply to be a bike friendly community. I'm saying maybe 3 years, let's pretend. And so I thought this would be very good information to track so that when we do the application the next time, we know exactly the things that we need to make sure gets added on there so that we can ideally guarantee ourselves a bronze. So that's why I put here are the things that should also be going on the application. And then what I would do, ideally, I'd be assisting you with that application and I would come back to all these work plans and make sure that all those boxes get checked off and making sure that all those fields get filled out. So that's sort of my rationale for that particular part. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention is the asterisks, or sorry, the small, you see the little 1s and 2s sort of in the document. And that is in reference to a couple of previous documents. So I just wanted to make sure everyone did see that. So at the bottom, sorry, I got to scroll. The number 1 is from the 2019 Share the Road workshop report. So again, I'm thinking these are good things that we want to keep in mind. We got that feedback back. That was from our community members. That was from our group. So I think these are things that are higher priority and that we might want to keep that in mind when we're prioritizing the project and projects. And then the other little 2 was from the 2021 Bike Friendly Communities application feedback report. So again, thinking about if we want to apply to bike friendly communities in 3 years, this is the feedback that they gave. So to me, in my mind, this is how we get bronze, is we keep those sort of things as priority. We do not need to do all of this now. I just think we need to start scheduling it in, if that sort of makes sense.
Very much.
Okay. So I guess I have a couple of ways I can facilitate this. One of the things I did think it might be important to flag is certain things on the current 2021 work plan that might need to move forward into 2022. So I don't know if we want to section it off by first looking at cycling projects and the current things, seeing what things might need to carry over, what things are completely done, and then kind of looking at the parking lot items and maybe picking 1 or 2 items that as a group we feel like are the priorities. Does anyone have any feedback on that process before we get started? That sounds fine. Okay, great. Wonderful. So Let me see if I can pull everybody at the top of my screen, just because it's nice to be able to see people as I'm doing this. Okay, scrolling up and making everybody dizzy. That's not going to help Kathy's migraine. Okay, and sorry, I just want to adjust you guys because I need to be able to see you as I'm facilitating. Okay, so going through the first part, we're in cycling projects. So put yourself in the cycling brain. I would say that the carry through pieces would be that Romeo Street, just as we were talking about the lines and sort of the signage and the chevrons, whatever that looks like, that is a 2022. That's just a carry through to sort of wrap up that project. Oh, Nancy, how do we want to capture this for like minutes? Do you want me to take notes here? Do you want me to sort of state specific things? What's easiest for you?
I'm trying to take as good a notes as I can, but maybe I will confer with you while I'm doing my minutes and
That
just
sounds
make
good.
sure that like I've captured everything that you want me to.
Okay, sounds good. I might even label these as like one, so you can see how I did that, Nancy. So I'll categorize that as cycling projects 1, and then if you capture it as cycle 1, then we can like make sure that we're on the same page when we combine these together. Sounds okay? So
Yeah.
for this one here, 2022, just finishing up the signage and the actual painting of the signs. The next one here, all is good. The corrals are done. And I think there's a third corral, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, that is being installed. A final one? Yes. Okay, great. So that's 2 there. The bicycle parking improvement plan. So we got a great report back on that particular one. The only thing for that one is, so we know like all of our things measured, posts and rings installed, number of facility parking. The only thing that we haven't sort of figured out is if there's like a request system or not. So is that something that we want to carry through to 2022 to see if that's a priority that comes up? We have a request system for valet, but not to request to put a spike or a post and ring somewhere. That sounds good to everybody. Okay, so we will, for number 3, we'll just, yep, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just gonna say that what is it, bike parking of like plan? It should just carry through till it's completed, right? So any items in that staff report of plan should just always, right? So even
that's great.
So part of it is that request to post, but then there are pieces of it about number of posts and stuff. So I think that plan itself as a whole should just move forward till we're through it.
Great. Okay, that sounds good. And then the education piece. So we had Mike last week or last meeting with us, and that's what we were talking about. It started out with Wayne offered to model for photos. That was like the original idea back in the day. And it morphed into, which we still will do that, but it morphed into a 2022 sort of or yearly calendar of different things that we can get up on the digital screens in Stratford. And then Kathy and myself will be the ones to sort of coordinate that with the feedback from the committee. So that still seems probably relevant.
We talked about doing that for the January meeting.
Yes. And that's if I can commit to doing some non-COVID things. And that one is an education piece with all of our different things, pedestrian, multi-use trails, all our active transportation lens, and not just a cycling piece. Okay. So that's a carry forward. So I think I just wanted to sort of keep us which things are wrapped up versus not. So then we go into priority setting. We know actually we've got quite a bit of things on this particular work plan if we want to prioritize 1 or 2 more things or not. So the encouragement, the only thing I had on this one was Jody was going to research into other bike share programs and their cost. Jody, do you want to speak to that one?
Sure. Yeah, I was really glad to see you put this in the document because I totally forgot about that. So, but in the meantime, I was able to do a little bit of research. I found a really great guide called the Bike Share Planning Guide, 2018 edition, put out by ITDP, which I don't really know what it stands for, but it's a very thorough guide that compares the different types of bike shares, talks about different sizes of cities. It's 110 pages of all kinds of, this is how it can be done. I wasn't actually able to pin down costs. However, in this guide, they go through and they say, okay, and they give you charts. They're like, Montreal, it costs this much. In Beijing, it costs this much. And, you know, this is because there's all different ways to do it. You can have programs that have docking systems. You can have dock lists. They recommend a certain number of bikes per 1,000 residents. So, but it could be between 10 and 30 bikes per 1,000. So there's a lot of factors. There's also the option of having an outside company do it for the city, and then like doing a permit system, or so there's a ton of options.
Okay. Do you think it would be worth the while to send that document to Nancy? She can circulate it out to the group. That could be some homework for us to sort of look at for a meeting in January or February or whatever we want to do it. And then that can be something that we look at as well. The other thing I want to plant with that particular seed, and thank you so much for looking into that, Jody, is years ago, I had the idea of partnering with like destination, like Perth and Huron tourism groups, and having it so we have a bike share program across the county. So like you could take it to G and then you could drop it off in, you know, Blythe or whatever. So I thought if that's something that we can look at from a city, but also possibly a county tourism lens, that might be something to look at. Anyway, so I'm planting that seed now for all of you to
That would be
let that percolate.
too. The guide does talk about like the scope of the area and how that works, and you know, cost is, the more dense the system is, the less it costs. But as you spread out, it costs more. It's very interesting. So I'll send that to Nancy, and everyone can have a look.
I was going to say one of the ideas, because we looked at it years ago, and it was like, it was not affordable. Like we did the, but it's become more so, because I know I did the overview at the time, and it was like until you got about 100,000 population, it really couldn't work. But one of the things I like now is we have regional transportation, and we have the Stratford Transit Terminal is it's a hub. So one of the advantages we have now is that we do have the opportunity for people who may want to come to Stratford and then may want to take a bike from, you know, at the transit hub and then return it back. Like there's just a lot of changes that we have that might make it a little more feasible now. So I think it's a good chance to look at it. Again.
Great. Okay. So we'll keep that one on as something to carry forward then. Cool. Yeah, that was like the benefit of me coming in with just a new set of eyes. I was like, ooh, this is a good tidbit from the minutes that we haven't talked about in a while. So let's just put it here and just look at it again. So, okay. And then the other thing was for cycling was we had some things happening for Bike Month, and I can get Wayne to kind of fill that particular piece out. But I feel like Bike Month is something we might want to gear up in the future. So that one would likely stay on. And I think there's lots of really great things we can do with Bike Month, especially when the kids will hopefully be in school. So then we can work and do some school travel planning, walking and wheeling to school days as part of Bike Month. Maybe we could do the rodeo. We had a great rodeo being planned, and then COVID hit. So there might be some opportunities to be able to do these things in the spring, and that will kind of bring those things into that encouragement piece. Okay, so keeping that in mind, a lot of these projects we are carrying through, and then looking at the parking lot ideas of engineering, as well as education and encouragement. I'll let everyone take a second to look at those. Is there anything that in those parking lot items that stands out to people as a priority for 2022? you can just kind of table it, kind of give your rationale of why you think it's important, and then we can kind of have a discussion. It's hard to do this one not in person because I would have done a dotmocracy thing where I would have given people dots and giving you places to go, but yes, Kathy.
If I may, a good chunk of these kind of fall into that category of the update to the bike and pedestrian master plan, right?
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, all the ones that have kind of, I'm sorry, it's, but all the ones that have two next to them, like we have Vision Zero is part of the transportation master plan, is part of it, like that some of the cycling networks and routes, and some of that all will sort of be, so, and I know that ATAC is one of the groups that has been flagged as focus groups for the transportation master plan.
Great.
And so I see a lot of these as future planning, but then also linking it into the transportation master plan and the update to the bike and pedestrian master plan. So it's going to be, I guess my point is a lot of this is going to get done in 2022, whether we choose to do it or not, because it's going to be done, I think.
Awesome. And it would be nice that we're sitting at the table. Yep, Jody.
Yeah, just a note about the integrating cycling and public transportation. I think we kind of did that. And the answer was no, not right now, because we can't really get bike racks on the outside of buses. So we kind of, I think we have hit that one by getting information at least, and where the bikes might go on the bus and so on. So I think we've accomplished that. The other one is the Foreman Street redesign. That's like something I would love to see done. I think it's really important.
So I did send a very rough sketch of what I hoped the road could look like, kind of giving it a road diet essentially. Yep. I sent it off to Nathan Bottoма, the engineer that was here on ATAC. And he said, because I got it from book 18, and he said, oh, this actually might work for this street. So I said, I measured it in winter, so I don't know exactly, because there's a bit of ice and snow. But anyways, he did say that that was something he would look into at some point, but I also don't know if it now gets pushed over to Nick because he's taking on that project management piece.
Yeah, any chance you could forward that to me, or I can ask it?
100%.
Yeah, I would really love to see that move forward next year. I think it's really important with the school being there and so many students. It really is a street that needs something. It's wide enough that people speed down it all the time. It's hard not to. Like when I drive on it, it's hard to drive the speed limit because it's so wide. Yeah, I think something needs to be done there, really.
Yes. Okay. 4-2 Nick. Okay. So that's a lot of the engineering pieces are taken care of. For me, and this is something from a public health that I could definitely support the group in, is this one here under education, the engaging forms of education about sharing the road. So the campaigns, it moves us all in the Dutch Reach. I had no idea what the Dutch Reach was, but it's a very simple concept and it's wonderful. So if anyone doesn't know what it is, it's just turning and opening your car door with your crossing your arms so that you're automatically looking behind, and then you can see cyclists behind you, or you're catching like people coming behind you. So it's very simple, and they've got a funny video that goes along with that we could easily share. But those sorts of education pieces are very easy to do. We just have to have a bit of a plan to do it. So anyways, that would be something that.
Has anyone seen the really neat video for the dooring, like using the Dutch Reach and preventing someone getting doored? It's really good. I'll see if I can find it. I'll forward it.
That's part of the driver's test. If you go and open your door the wrong way, they fail you.
Or if your door comes off and you get doored, I guess that's a failure too.
Yeah. Is there anything from John or David, anything that's sticking out for you two, Bernard, in terms of just those things under cycling?
The parking lot education, is that geared mostly to children?
It can be either. So like the ones, so like this one here was increased bicycle and road safety for all ages. That came from the one report. So that again, it doesn't have to just be children. The school travel planning one, that one specifically is geared to children and their parents.
And I have to say, that's one where we got feedback from the Share the Road folks that we needed to expand it to all schools, but we had done it to all schools. I think they just completely missed the fact that Stratford only had that many schools. So it was really one of those funny ones because as well, you should try this, at all the schools. And I'm like, so that was a bit of a, although now we can go back and say we did it. It's the relaunch that I'm more worried about is all the schools know how to do it. It's how do we get them to start doing it again after once everything's kind of back to normal. Probably September 2022 would be a really good time to have like a full relaunch of this at all the schools.
Yeah, for sure.
What sort of mechanisms do we have to reach out to the community at large for item number 2, the share the road, talking to the motorists primarily?
The police have one of the when Dave Stewart used to have his car, it had all the Share the Road stickers all over it. The police have put out the big sign that says doing Share the Road stuff. The health unit has put out Share the Road stuff. So it's mostly signage and Facebook posts and things like that have been done in the past. I think that it's been somewhat ad hoc. So I'm wondering whether we have an opportunity to do more of a blitz where it includes a bit of education, a bit of signage, a bit of enforcement, some of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been very ad hoc to date.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one. And that's something you can build into like your bike month stuff. It's something you can build into school travel planning. So you can send that information out to your principals. They could get it into school newsletters. So it could be like a very comprehensive approach. We just sort of have to figure out what all those little pieces are.
One thing that I found interesting recently is that I think it's all of London is reducing their speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour in certain sections of Kitchener. And I mean, speed is not to our advantage for road safety for bicyclists.
Well, funny you should say that. We tried to do that two years ago and I failed and Jody failed barely by one vote. But more recently, about 2 months ago, we did pass actually quite a flip on a few members to look at reducing the speed on all local roads to 40. So
when larger communities nearby are going in that direction, I think some of the councillors will flip because they want to be politically correct.
Yeah. Had the councillors looked at the research that I presented the first time around, then sorry, I'm feeling a little smug at the moment because
no, but
we got a lot of attention for being early, bringing the idea early, and I used data and everything else. So, I'm feeling a little miffed that just because London gets around to it, that suddenly it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
at
not
the
saying
time,
it's
at the time, some of the councillors said we need more data because I think we said Kitchener was just starting to introduce it, and they're like, well, we'll see how it goes over there. But 2 years later, there's a lot more information, and basically all the municipalities are moving that way. So we'll get there. We're waiting for the report to come back.
Well, I'm sure the information was, solid that was presented, but sometimes, that's interesting, but not in our backyard right now.
Well, they changed, it looks like we're moving in a different direction, so I'm happy for that.
Good.
Okay, so looking kind of at between up top here and then our parking lot items, we, a few of these things can easily move forward. Like I can send this stuff off to Nick. The master transportation plan can capture sort of the vision zero and those types of things. We talked about how the engaging forms of education would be ideal to sort of look into, and then also expanding our school travel planning. And we have budget for that one. So keeping that in mind that there's budget attached to that one, as well as things that we haven't been able to hand out in a couple of years. So things are still sitting at the health unit and other places. It looks like from a cycling perspective that we got quite a full plate of projects for 2022. Does that sound fair to people?
Mhm.
Would it be helpful to the group? Because I also feel like when you develop a work plan, it's also sort of good to kind of assign like certain months that we would look at certain projects. So certain things we might not want to take a look until more like the fall versus some things we would want to put on our docket right away and get Nancy to add to the agenda. Do people want me to take kind of a first go at creating not a monthly calendar, but essentially like a starting point of timelines? And then we can kind of prioritize from there if that looks right or not. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good. And then you'll have to slot in like the bike month festivities. That'll come sooner than later. So we can get
Exactly.
ready for June. Yeah. that's
Exactly.
great.
So kind of be like a little system of like when it needs to be added to the agenda, something that's carried over to 2020, like January. And then Nancy kind of knows from there too, like what things might need to arise as sort of new business, but it's really just based from our work plan. Does that make sense too? Do you, Nancy?
Yep, that'd be good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's good. Any further discussion on cycling, or are we okay to move on to multi-use trails?
I had a question about cycling. Since our group is called Active Transportation, seems, especially on campuses, there's been more of a thrust on scooters you see everywhere. And I haven't seen many around Stratford, but I mean, should we not be addressing that as well? Or are we lumping that with cycling?
Take that one, Kathy.
When we do the school travel planning, we actually include, it's walk and roll, and it includes scooters. We actually had some of the identified challenges at the schools where children bring their scooters and not having anywhere to put them, but we do encourage scootering as well as cycling. And we bought scooter racks for a bunch of the schools so that the kids could park them. And so it went, I think in general, we actually will include longboarding too. So like it includes any form of active transportation, including scootering, skateboarding, cycling, whatever. All of
Okay.
the above. Yeah.
What's the
Yeah,
current
that's-
bylaw status on the e-scooters? They're
Is there a
We
bylaw?
we don't have one. I think that's the answer. So
No.
it's,
neither
Yeah.
do we have a scooter share, like bike share business yet.
I do have to say people hate scooter share, and I really don't blame them. They, it is a bit of a menace to sidewalks and to pedestrians. Because people just, it's, some of the things that I'm seeing out of Ottawa are pretty shocking. So,
They leave them everywhere.
yeah.
This
And
is
they
why
leave
we
them-
can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things, because people in wheelchairs can't use the sidewalks because
Yeah.
people are dumping scooters on them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so we can move on to multi-use trail projects, and really that one, the only one that was captured to my knowledge was the TJ Dolan Road closure and resurfacing, which looks like it's in progress, which is very exciting. So yeah, it'll be cool to see that when that's finished. And, you know, I kind of feel like it would be really nice for our group to get there at some point together to sort of celebrate. I think that's a very exciting thing. It would be great to have some photos taken there. These are like important pieces, I think, to the things that this group has done. So I think that one just keeps carrying on and we keep letting it roll. Is there any other multi-use trail projects that I didn't mention here that is currently in the works or scheduled to be in the works?
I don't know if the blazing of the trail through the TJ Dolan is relevant here, but Tatiana just emailed me this week saying that the Quinn Malott and the Parks Department have given permission for the volunteers from the Avon Trail to blaze the TJ Dolan in consultation with Quinn, so that we could. Was this come under the wayfinding more?
I'm just trying to look. I think it should be under wayfinding.
Okay.
But that's okay, because I don't think it specifically in here says that. So
okay, right.
That's good that you're giving the update, and then we can, that is something to go forward with.
Right.
So if you want to keep going with that, I'll just add a note
Well,
here.
yeah, if it's under the wayfinding, then I see it says maps developed and installed. But it's also the blazing. I don't know if you want to add that detail, but the trail actually is going to be blazed with the blue hashtags. And as I said, we're going to consult with Quinn Malott to, in some places, so I should back up. The Parks Department has given us permission to use our volunteers and to put our blazes on trees where there are appropriate trees, and where there aren't, we'll have to install posts, and that's what we've been asked to consult with Quinn Malott as to where the location of those posts would be. And so that's great. We've got permission to go ahead. The only fly in the ointment right now is that when the temperatures drop below 10 degrees, it's not a good time to be painting blazes because of the, it's just, you need a warmer temperature for the paint to dry. So we're going to, we may, weather dependent, we may get the walkthrough with Quinn before the weather closes in on us. Otherwise, it's going to have to wait till the spring, and the painting of blazes will undoubtedly have to wait till the spring now.
Okay. Great. That's perfect. Thank you for that update. Okay, so the multi-use trail projects.
Yeah,
it sounds like
there is one more that we're finding out about. I had asked about resurfacing the multi-use trail along Erie, because it's really not in great shape. So I think we're getting a report back from engineering about that.
But we also do have some other multi-use trails approved by council, but on the list to get done at some. Remember this group flagged a multi-use trail on Duro, all the way around to CH Meyer. And it was approved by council, but then it got bumped by the fact that Huntington Street needed that $150,000 crosswalk because of the crossing Huron Street, right, to go for the kids to school. And then we had another piece that possibly a multi-use trail connecting the, and I think this is an even more important one now, connecting the McCarthy Road bike lanes across over to because it stops at Mornington, but then there's a small gap now, but from Mornington to Romeo. And that is, I think it was a council approved project, but it's sitting somewhere on the unfunded list, obviously, with so much going on. But those are approved, council approved multi-use trail projects to remember, because I think especially the Duro one is just because sheer safety on people trying to get out to the mall, right, as a transportation mode. And I think that the completion of the McCarthy one, it would mean we would have multi-use trails from one end across the north end of the city and a good way down Romeo to the park system, and then through the parks. Like if you could imagine it would actually create a continuous bike facility which would be interesting. But I just, for some of the new people that maybe don't know about those older approved projects for multi-use trails.
Okay, great. So I've added those to the parking lot items. And the nice thing is, you know, what I'll do is when we create the 2022 work plan, we can leave certain things still in the parking lot so that we can keep moving them forward as we want to prioritize them. So we won't lose this stuff. It'll just be things that will sit as a parking lot item. So that's great. Thank you for that history, Kathy. That's super helpful. I know there was a couple of things that came up that I was like, I don't know what exact pot this is going into. So I just noted it. Okay, perfect. So I've added it to the right pot. Okay, great.
Just an update there, sir, so TJ Dolan, that the hard surface works finished, just restoration and some signage is outstanding. So that is all gonna be spring.
Hard surface is finished.
Yep.
Okay.
Signage, gates, so, we added some delineators in that narrow strip between the road and the trail. Touching on Erie Street, so we've started to do some survey work and base plans for that. If that is the project that those funds for next year end up going for, just trying to determine if it's suitable to resurface it or if it needs to be excavated completely at the moment. So, but we are getting things organized depending on which way that goes, and the same goes for Duro. Survey work and drafting is ongoing.
So Nick, when you say excavating the Erie Street multi-use trail, do you mean leaving it as a hard packed surface?
Yeah, so it's asphalt right now and then it has a granular base, but it really only lasted, it was installed in 94 or something, so the life cycle we got out of it wasn't that great. So I'm not sure if it was, you know, heavy equipment. Maybe the asphalt was super thin or the granular base that was installed wasn't sufficient. But you can see rutting in the asphalt from sidewalk snow clearing equipment,
Right.
things like that. So,
But especially in that location, hard packed surface, I think, would be sufficient and probably be cheaper than actually putting asphalt or concrete.
yeah, the difficulty there is maintaining it in the winter. Like a gravel surface is pretty tough for a sidewalk plow to maintain, and where a hard surface would definitely be the preferred for longevity, but yeah.
Also for accessibility, one of the things that we continuously get back from the accessibility advisory committee, especially that crushed gravel piece going from Delamere into the park system, is a perennial request for them to pave it. The gravel or even crushed gravel or hard pack is hard on wheelchairs, and so they do prefer, if it's a significant active transportation piece, that it be paved if possible.
Okay.
I do
Thank
like
you.
the Erie Street one. I do like it's always nice to have something new and shiny, but you know, if you have something that needs to be replaced, it makes sense.
Also, that one, I don't know if people realize, but the soccer club has put in a trail through their system, but you can use it as a cut across. You can go all the way up that Erie Trail. You can use the trail that the soccer folks have put in through the Packham Fields, and then you can come back up and meet up with the bike paths out at the industrial park and take a bike path right out to line whatever it is at the top.
29.
Yeah, and so it really is, you know, redoing that little piece. Like Nick said, it's always really nice to redo a piece, but it's also nice to redo a piece that now has additional value for getting people safely up Erie, across, and out of the city if they're cycling, if they're doing some road cycling out of the city.
Okay, thank you for those updates, Nick. That's very helpful. Okay, so moving into the pedestrian projects. So a couple of things before we get into this that I thought I would flag, I guess, is keeping in mind, 2 years ago, I facilitated a session where we kind of looked at sidewalks and disconnection of sidewalks. And then we kind of prioritized based on our own knowledge and knowledge of others, what things we would recommend to the accessibility advisory committee so that when they're doing their priority planning, they got some feedback from ATAC. So I don't know if the dream would be we would do community engagement. I would love nothing more for us to be able to actually reach out to the community, go into different neighborhoods and to be able to get feedback from people who live in the neighborhoods. That would be the ultimate goal. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but I think that would be a goal. So keeping with that, would we want to do another priority session for the sidewalk piece to be able to make that recommendation to accessibility advisory committee? So if that's a yes, then that would be something we would want to add to our work plan for 2022. Any feedback, thoughts on that?
Kathy's got her hand up there.
Oh, sorry, Kathy. Yeah.
And maybe Nick can help me because I'm not exactly sure. Does the update to the bike and pedestrian master plan also then do an update to the sidewalk and things like that? And then if they're going out and doing consultation, public consultation on it, would that include public consultation on pedestrian infrastructure gaps? Or would that be something we should take on separately?
Know that the sidewalk is taken into account in that plan, whether or not, I'm not sure if it does go back to consultation to the public for it. I do have if it's of interest, I have a list that's sort of on our radar in engineering for missing sidewalks. I don't know if you want to hear that or not, but so I got 5 here.
Did you want to share your screen, Nick, at all? Is that helpful or no?
I
And
can
then
just read.
Okay, sounds good. I'm not going to capture this, by the way.
So Darrow Street, you've already talked about that. That is whether or not it's a trail or a sidewalk. I guess that's to be determined. But the first few steps has to take place regardless if it's a trail or a sidewalk. John Street, this is on the east side from Cambria to Center, so it would hook up to the TJ Dolan. Martin Street, which Councillor Kathy Vasquez talked about, which is Delamere to William on the east side, and that's sort of a replacement for that gravel trail. Cambria Street, St. Vincent to John on the south side, which kind of works with the West Gore stuff that was done this year. And then Walnut Street, Dufferin to Railway, likely the south side, but surveying's just taking place now, so that'll depict the ideal spot if it's south or north side.
And what's nice about that last one, it was the public that came to us and said there are a lot of kids walking, there's no sidewalks. You know, I think it's one of those where you can see where the public's been using, you know, some trodden grass and it's close to, like, you know, Dufferin Arena and the park. And so that was a nice example where we keep talking about the side of the city that we remember. Sarah, I think I think there's a couple of us that have been around long enough to say, how is it that we never include that end of the city? And I think
Agreed.
Really, really great opportunity to hear from people from that end of the city about where they had gaps that they needed. So
Yeah, that would definitely be one part of the city I would love to do a bit more grassroots, going to them, like being out there with them, getting some feedback. That's the side of the city I think that would need just some more eyes. Okay.
nice when it's not, like, none of these would initiate a local improvement, so that's good for lots of things.
Does everyone know what that means? Yeah, just because, sorry, Nick, just some people might not realize what local improvement means and the cost sharing that happens and the changes to what council did a couple years ago to make it. Do you want to explain it, or I can?
Yeah, I'll do. So local improvement, sort of a process where an improvement's taking place in a neighborhood, like it can be sewers or water, road or sidewalks. And there's a petition and there's a cost sharing structure between the residents and the city. And it's time consuming. I understand what the process is, but it is very confrontational. So as a politician, it's not, I'm guessing it's not fun, but
it's also expensive. So one of the reasons why it was changed so that if a project is less than a certain dollar value, the city would just flat out pay for it rather than going after people for half of it. Because with the I guess it's not LPAT anymore. It's like the OLT. If neighbors decide to take an approved project to put in sidewalks to OLT, the cost of going to OLT is roughly the same as if you had just paid for the project. And so part of it was recognizing that if citizens wanted to oppose paying for a sidewalk or their share of the sidewalk under a certain dollar value, you might as well just not ask them to pay for it, because OLT is going to cost you like $10,000 or whatever. So all of these projects don't involve having to ask people for money, which is always an easier way to get them done. So
yeah, that was a good decision to made there. To put a dollar value as a minimum
and as
a process.
Yeah, it miffed my husband a little because we did pay for our sidewalk. We were thrilled to pay for our sidewalk. I am thrilled with the sidewalk that we got. I had no problems, but it was funny because then 2 years later we changed it. He goes, "Do you mean we wouldn't have had to pay?" I'm like, "Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone."
The other thing I wanted to flag in this section, and Nick, you might be able to comment on if the transportation master plan might capture this piece of it, is I don't want to lose sight of pedestrian crossovers, because I think we've got two very successful ones happening right now, and I see room for more of them throughout the city. And is that something that the transportation master plan is going to capture in it?
That I would have to look into.
Okay, because that would be something that if they're not capturing, is that something that ATAC can? Yes, Jody.
Yeah, there's also a downtown traffic study that was done, and I saw today on our ITS report update from engineering that they are looking at some of those pedestrian crossover. I don't know if it's signaled crossing, but they are looking at plans for installing some of those recommendations. So there is some downtown stuff happening.
Okay. That would be the Ontario Street, Church Street, St. Andrew Street type one, or is that a different one?
The Ontario Church one, it's a reconfiguration, which will be brilliant because it actually.
Okay.
The road will change.
Yeah, it's actually, I think the one in particular that I remember is the George Street. Where the Avon Theater is in George Street.
Oh, that's a great location.
I think that's one that was flagged in that downtown traffic study. And I believe that's one that was higher in the list, but maybe Nick knows more, but I think that's the one.
That's one, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, just pedestrian crossovers. I think that is something just not to. That's something we want to keep in mind moving forward, because that certainly helps with schools and getting, those certain crossing places in the city. It makes it way easier. And we've had such good feedback with Huntington and Huron. We've had such good feedback from the Foreman one. So I feel like the more that we have in the city, and people use them well, like I haven't heard many incidents of, things happening at the crossovers.
They were, I will say, because the clerks were out, and I don't know if Tatiana remembers, it was a bumpy start on foreman, but that's why I think we need more of them. Like now that people have learned how to use them and what they are and what they're supposed to do, I think we should just put, like, it was a bit of a bumpy learning curve for people on how they were supposed to be using them.
Yeah, for sure. Just like anything that's new. Roundabouts, which we should get more of. Just kidding, kind of.
Love them.
I know, me too.
Like-
I can send you all a podcast to listen to. Okay, so with those sort of things, the pedestrian projects that we have, so there's a sidewalk, we had a couple of sidewalks, some benches, and then the infrastructure deficiency report and the project recommendations from ATAC to AAC. So all these things from 2021 are essentially closed off. And it sounds like there's a few things that are already kind of in the pipeline for 2022. Does that make sense?
I think the coordination with the accessibility group should be a regular thing, if it isn't already.
It's a regular thing. We've done it every year. I think this year was the third year that we did it. It works really well.
And would we want to do like a priority setting project again and make that recommendation? What does that look like to people, if you want to explain?
Well, we sort of copied we didn't do it quite as formally as you did the last time. We did a loose priority setting and had a couple of highlights that we took forward this year.
Perfect. Continues with identifying priorities.
And if Nancy, is it on the calendar when like I think we have like a standing invitation from accessibility, but do we have it built into our schedule, the meeting where we are supposed to decide what we take to
Yeah, usually we do it, I want to say like February, March, and then
I think you're right.
I think we usually go to like the April or May meetings. I know there was some things happening with their committee this year that delayed us going to their meetings, but I think usually it's around the April meeting so that things can get discussed and go in budgets if they need to and stuff.
Okay, great. Anything else from, sorry, I'm trying to now be mindful of the time. I get carried away apparently. But good discussion, I think. You know what, when you're doing any work plan stuff, it's going to take more than an hour. Let's not get ourselves. Okay, so any other discussion for pedestrian? Okay, so we'll move forward now to the wayfinding and mapping. So this one here, the TJ Dolan entrance map refresh, I know that one is going to continue. That one's in progress. So that's good. Remind me of the active transportation map. I said ideas were captured. Kathy, do you know what I'm talking about there?
So we had like these ideas about sort of a cycling map and hiking map. And I think what happened is Destination Stratford, we had a meeting with them and they kind of ran with it and created these little, I don't know if I don't have it handy, it's upstairs, this little Perth County cycling map with some routes. Yeah, there it is right there.
Oh.
So, and so I think there's an electronic version as well. So yeah, I think that's where we kind of went, oh, they just ran with it. Yeah. And
Okay.
they paid for it and they paid for it. They paid for a whole pile of them. So,
Okay, that's awesome. Is that something we could share out with the minutes, is the link to that? And I'm thinking also that might be something we want to promote, like if we're doing sort of those transit ads and whatever, promoting that would be a good idea.
yeah, and I think you can pick up a paper map. I think Destination Stratford did promote it and said you can just pick one up. You can pick them up at the tourism office. So
Did they make an online version of this? I don't recall seeing that.
I thought they did.
There is a QR code, so I guess I could, oh, I don't have my phone with me. I could scan it and see where it goes.
I think Perth County was promoting it.
Yeah, it says scan for digital maps. So obviously they exist somewhere that we could maybe link to, hopefully.
Do you want to scan that and send it to Nancy for the minutes, or send it to her to send out?
I thought I had my phone here, but I don't.
Well, you don't have to do it right now, but that
It
would
would
be
be
great
easy
if-
to do now, but
That would be.
not without the phone.
Okay, great. And then the wayfinding strategy. So this was the memo was circulated to ATAC. It was reviewed at the 2021. And then that included if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, the TJ Dolan, that's where there's a couple of approaches. So that's where your group is going out, Bernard, and doing the trailblazing with the blue hashtags as we captured. Is there anything else that needs to be captured under that wayfinding strategy?
Well, the blazing in the TJ Dolan is just part of the whole project for marking the Avon Trail through the city, from the Devon Street Playground in the east all the way to the end of the TJ Dolan. So that's I think in our subcommittee meeting with Tatiana and Wayne and John, we sort of, the project was divided into at least phase 1 and phase 2, if my understanding is correct. And phase 1 is the TJ Dolan. Phase 2, which we'll tackle later, hopefully next year. But we'll just have to see how phase 1 goes. But that will be the marking of the blazing through town to the Devon Street Playground. And incidentally, while you're talking about mapping, I don't know if the Avon Trail is already produced and it's available at the tourist office map, a tear-off map that 11 by 14 format, just a single piece of paper that shows the whole Stratford side trail from the Devon Street Playground out to TJ Dolan. And that's something that the Avon Trail Club undertook on their own, but I don't know whether there's any coordination that you want to note somehow in your under your wayfinding mapping annotation there.
Okay, great.
Also,
Hey, Kathy.
yeah, I just also want to add that the Avon Trail isn't the only part of that whole project for wayfinding. I think there's marking of the rest of the Avon Trail is only part of the TJ Dolan Trail system. So the other part of this that does get bumped into 2022 and 2023, and it's a multi-year, multi-phase project, is the marking of the TJ Dolan trails as well. And we've already talked about, like, in many trail systems where you have 2 different colors. So Avon Trail is blue, then the TJ Dolan part of the rest of it will be possibly another color, but that's all part of the wayfinding strategy as well.
And then I guess from a non-hiking perspective is I think there needs to be education on like trailblazing, because like I know nothing about that, and we must assume that a lot of people won't. So I think that also gets rolled into it, is that teaching people about trailblazing. And that can be done again through like our schools and our active transportation, like the school stuff, but that could be done on the transit ads. But I just think that is education that needs to be done.
Some of it, I think, was supposed to be part of the entrance maps.
Great.
So as you come in or you leave the city, I mean, it's fairly obvious in the city in some places where things are. But then as you start to move out, the signs at the gateways should have something about that. That's what I was led to believe.
Okay, great.
That's my understanding too, that there was going to be some revamping of this entrance ways. For example, in the TJ Dolan, the 3 or 4 different entrance points into that would have a larger scale sort of signage that, and how to interpret the blazing would be just a part of what goes on that sign. And we had anticipated that some sort of signage would occur, would be placed in a couple of places through town, because not everybody's going to pick up the trail at the TJ Dolan. They could pick it up anywhere through town. And that signage would also include in part how to interpret and how to read hashtags and in a directional sense.
Okay, that's great. And if I've learned anything from doing COVID communications, is that you can still have all your best intentions and put up the kiosk and people are still not going to look at them. So then the next step is literally on the tree. If you have which I know we don't want to do, but putting up a blaze and saying right on the tree, this is a blaze, follow this to this is what you're looking for, because sometimes we have to be very explicit with our instructions, even with our best intentions. If I've learned anything, could be very wrong, but feel like I'd be onto something. Okay, great. I don't want to take up too much more of everyone's time, so we'll just roll through to the other projects, which actually is a very long section. Some of these are open. Some of these are things that are already in progress. And the updated report card is in progress, so that's great. The bike and pedestrian master plan being integrated into transportation. Okay, that's where the stuff is. The Vision Zero is being incorporated into the transportation plan, so that's good. The one thing I did want to flag here that would be really great is having a police officer assigned to ATAC. And I'm not sure, I just saw that in minutes a while ago. I'm not sure if anything did ever come to that or not. Yeah, Kathy.
We used to have one assigned to the school travel planning part. Remember when
Yes.
school travel planning used to be
Yep.
part of ATAC and Dave Stewart would come? The difficulty we had was when the police then separated Dave's job into 3 different people and it all got complicated, and then COVID hit. But I think we should be able to, I don't know, I mean, it would have to be just a request. They can say yes or no.
Okay. Okay. And then the only other thing was just celebrating success. And that was something that came out of one of the reports. The one was a letter presented from ATAC to ITS, just outlining projects and just saying this is the great stuff that's happening. At some point, I would really like to write a letter on behalf of public health to congratulate the city and ATAC on what they're doing, because I think it's fantastic. And even in the 5-6 years I've been sitting on here, we've had a lot of really good work that's been done. And I know that there was work done before I got on here. So I just think, we can't lose sight of that, because sometimes it feels like, things might go slowly, but when you look at 10 years, actually, there's quite a bit that's happened. So anyways, I just think it is important to celebrate our successes and to recognize the people that make that happen. So that I just added on as an other.
I think what would be even better than just a letter is once council meetings are back in session, like in person, it would be really nice to have a delegation from ATAC go to, and not just ITS subcommittee, but go to the ITS committee and present a little bit of like this. It gets ATAC in front of a camera, but I think it also is, letters sometimes get shuffled away and you don't read them, but a 10-minute delegation to talk about some of this I think is more impactful, to be honest.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. And then there was just some other parking lots, but I feel like we've got a lot on our plates. So maybe it's good just to leave that for at least a while. And we can always relook at things if we run out of things to do, but I don't imagine that happening. So with that being said, what I will kind of do at some point over the next, I'm going to hope month, is to be able to take all this information, kind of look at Nancy's notes as well, and then kind of create a 2022 work plan based on what we had talked about tonight, and then also attach some months of when we would want to start talking about these things. Does that sound about right to everybody?
Very helpful.
And does anyone have any final comments they want to make before we wrap it up? Because I don't think there's any other agenda items unless anyone had any new business.
Just to say, Sarah, I think this is a very impressive work plan and very helpful to see everything in perspective and comprehensively like that. Thanks a lot for doing it.
No problem. Very happy to.
As I said last meeting, it was very helpful in preparing the report to the city for the budget for next year.
I think I actually looking forward, I think having something like this, like we're gonna have an election, just certainly from the perspective of who you get on this committee, we have an election next year, and having representation from council on here and having something like this presented to whoever happens to be here, it could be one, both, none, whatever, is really going to be important.
I will hand things back over to you, David.
Thank you, Sarah. This has been very helpful, and I'm glad you were able to guide us through it.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, going on. Item 4, new business is. I have a general question for the powers that be. Are we anywhere close to developing a plan to resume meeting in person? Is that on the city's plan? Any guidance from public health or higher levels of organization yet?
I'm not sure whether, oh, there she is.
I don't, yeah, I don't, oh, good, Tatiana, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm happy to kind of chime in here. So at this time, staff are, we're basically recommending the continuation of electronic meetings until all COVID-19 related restrictions are removed. This is basically just to ensure that we can kind of come back to meetings. We won't have to deal with social distancing or mask related requirements. So at this time, we do have a schedule that is going to the December 13th Finance and Labor Relations Committee meeting, and it recommends continuing electronic meetings until all COVID-19 related restrictions are lifted. At this time, we've scheduled it around April. Should the province remove those restrictions earlier, we would return to in-person meetings.
Okay. Thank you for the information. Anybody else have anything they'd like to raise? Okay, with that in mind, next meeting, December 22nd at 7. Do I have a motion?
Sorry, can I just chime in here for 1 sec?
Sorry, Nancy, yes.
Often the December meeting, the group decides to cancel it because it is so close to Christmas. I'm happy to move it a week earlier or cancel at your discretion. I just wanted to throw that out there, David being a new chair. We often don't have a December meeting, but I will leave that up to you and we can always decide at a later date as well.
I don't think there's much that unless anybody informs me otherwise, we have a few things scheduled for January, giving Sarah some time to pull things together in amongst the rest of COVID. I don't think there's anything, unless something comes up, I would say that possibly putting it aside for January. Any objections from the group? We're all on email, so worst case, we can make another decision, or at least keep things moving forward. Okay. Thank you, Nancy, for bringing that up. So do I have a motion for adjournment? Councillors? Motion, Jody, second, Kathy. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Kathy. I understand. With that in mind, thank you all. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, all in favor? Okay, thank you. With that in mind, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.